Social media and its impact on mental health in society at large is a hot topic of debate. While social media like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook clearly provide benefits, the debate rages around whether these platforms are contributing to the rising levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness amongst our teenagers, often called Gen Z. As a parent and as a coach and a therapist, this is a topic of great interest to me. My mission with this channel is to bring you the very best content in anxiety out there to help everyone and anyone struggling with anxiety. I've studied anxiety for years, and in that process, I've read hundreds of books on anxiety. In this, my first video on must-read books on anxiety, I want to laser in on some of the most important ones and save you the time. In this video, focus on Jonathan Haidt's 2024 book, The Anxious Generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. This delves into the alarming rise in mental health issues amongst young people and attributes this to the influence of smartphones, social media, and shifting parent practices. So watch to the end of this video and find out more about this important topic. And if you're new to this channel, I'd love you to subscribe. Simply click on the subscribe button. It's in the bottom right hand corner to learn more hot tips on how to master your anxiety. So the anxious generation is basically split into 4 parts. Number 1, a tidal wave. This provides detailed research into the sharp rise in youth mental health issues, anxiety, depression, self-harm, and so on. Beginning in around 2010, Haidt links the widespread adoption of smartphones to this period. In part 2, the backstory, he charts the decline of play-based childhood and argues that the decline in unstructured risky play and the rise in overprotective parenting has weakened children's resilience, making them much more vulnerable to anxiety and depression. In part 3, the rise of the phone-based childhood, he goes on to explain how the shift to a phone-based childhood has disrupted social interaction, sleep, attention, and this is what's contributed to the increase in anxiety, depression, and addiction amongst young people. And then there's part 4, collective action for a healthier childhood. This provides a clarion call for collective action from governments, tech companies, schools, parents to limit smartphone use, restore play-based childhood, and promote a healthier social development for our youngsters. So let's dive into the 4 parts. First up, part 1, the tidal wave. Haidt begins by presenting a compelling battery of worrying statistics that indicate a significant uptick in mental health diagnoses such as anxiety, disorders, and major depression, self-harm incidents, and suicide rates among individuals under 18, starting from 2010. This period coincides with the widespread availability of smartphones. Notably, these trends are less pronounced in those aged 30 and above and are observed globally across developed countries. In part 2, the backstory, the decline of the play-based childhood, he draws inspiration from Nassim Nicholas Taleb's concept of anti-fragility. Taleb's concept of anti-fragility refers to systems or individuals that benefit and grow stronger from stress, chaos, and uncertainty, rather than merely resisting or surviving them. Unlike fragile systems which break under pressure, and resilient systems which withstand shocks but remain unchanged, anti-fragile systems improve and adapt when exposed to challenges. If you've watched my videos on confidence and seen my process for gaining confidence, you'll see the commonalities here. The only way to get confidence is to be brave and leave your comfort zone. Try something new. Then you're uncertain whether you can complete the task or not. And then after lots of practice, you then become competent. And from that competency comes confidence. You then return to your comfort zone once more. So the only way to get confident is to try and fail at things until you become more competent. In a similar way, Haidt argues that children need exposure to manageable risks. and challenges to develop their resilience. Historically, unstructured, risky play allowed children to test their limits, learn from failures, and build coping mechanisms. However, over recent decades, there's been a marked decline in such play, and this is attributed to, firstly, safetyism, cultural shift towards overprotectiveness, where parents, educators, and caregivers minimize children's exposure to physical and emotional risks. This is evidenced in the design of modern playgrounds, which are super safe, lack the stimulation and the challenging elements that encourage risk taking and resilience. And the second thing is reduced playtime. Schools have increasingly cut down on break time and unstructured playtime, focusing more on academics. Additionally, urban planning favours cars over pedestrian friendly spaces. This has limited children's ability for free play and socialisation with peers. When I was growing up, and I'll grant you that was quite a few years ago, I played football and cricket in the street with my friends. The only inconvenience was every 30 minutes or so, a car would drive down the road in our cul-de-sac, much to our annoyance. It was very, very rare to see a car parked on the road itself. Today, this is what the same road looks like. Because of this increase in safetyism and reduced playtime, Height explains that we've become overprotective in the real world. These factors have left to children spending more time indoors, often engaging in solitary activities like watching TV or using computers. With the advent of smartphones and social media, these indoor activities became even more isolating, replacing opportunities for in-person social interaction and play. Part 3, The Great Rewiring, the rise of phone-based childhood. In part 3, The Rise of the Phone-Based Childhood, I identified 4 foundational harms that can be associated with smartphones and social media. The first one is what he calls social deprivation, the decline in face-to-face interactions, which has led to weaker social bonds and a sense of isolation among youngsters. Number 2 is sleep deprivation. There's an increase in screen time, especially before bedtime, really disrupts sleep patterns, and it leaves children with insufficient rest, which is crucial for mental health and physical health. Number 3 is what he calls attention fragmentation. The constant notifications and rapid consumption of information on social media platforms impair the ability to focus and engage in deep, meaningful tasks. Here he mentions Johann Hari's book, Stolen Focus, which is another book that's well worth a read. And the fourth factor is addiction. Social media platforms are designed to be addictive. They encourage prolonged use that interferes with real life activities and responsibilities. He draws on internal research from companies like Facebook, now Meta, which reveals awareness of this detrimental effect that their platforms have on teenagers, and particularly girls. In fact, he explains that smartphones and social media have affected girls more than boys, and they've affected them differently. For girls, the impact has been greater because girls are heavier users of social media than boys. And they prefer the visually orientated platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Also, girls have a tendency to compare themselves with others much more than boys, and they are, in essence, comparing their true selves to fake others. We see the worst of ourselves, but then compare that to the very best of others. For boys, they are impacted, but in a different way than girls. Nowadays, boys tend to spend much more time alone in their rooms playing in the virtual world. As a result, boys are far less likely to be involved in outdoor risky play or away from home. This is what's resulting in a phenomenon called failure to launch, where boys are unprepared for the real world and therefore cannot leave home or even their room in their parents' house. Statistics indicate that following the introduction of smartphones, there's been a steep decline in the amount of time children spend with friends, and an increase in getting less than 7 hours sleep, and a decrease in reported close friendships. These changes are much more pronounced in boys than girls. and not observed in the over 30s. Haidt concludes that whilst we are overprotecting children in the real world, we are underprotecting them in the virtual world, which is a great summary of the problem. And then there's part 4, collective action for a healthier childhood. As I mentioned before, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of 3 boys. And to be honest, I've really struggled with this issue as a parent. It's simply not possible to tell your child not to have a smartphone when all their friends have one and they use them to arrange their social life. They'll just be left out. In addition, if you're the only child that wants to go out and play outside and all your mates are playing inside on a game online in their bedroom, it's really quite hard to socialize and play with your mates outside. Therefore, solving this in isolation is simply impossible. So I was really encouraged to see that Haidt's solution to help children have a healthier childhood all involve collective action. He explains that addressing these challenges requires the collective efforts from governments, tech companies, schools, and parents, and he offers the following solutions. First solution he offers is government-backed initiatives, implementing regulations similar to the UK's Children's Code. This raises the age and protection limits under law for children under 13 to under 16. It enforces stricter age verification processes to prevent underage access to social media platforms. Number 2, tech companies' responsibilities. Enhance parental control on smartphone platforms to limit uses and access. Develop features that allow devices to signal social media sites about users' age restrictions, preventing underage account creation. Number 3 is school policies. I've noticed that locally to me, a number of schools have started to implement smartphone bans during school time and to encourage in-person interaction. Increase break time and promote risky play to build resilience and counteract the allure of screen time. And long may this continue. Next is parental strategies. As a parent, we need to learn to adopt less protective parenting styles to foster independence, to encourage unstructured play, and allow children to undertake tasks without constant supervision. We should delay the introduction of smartphones, opting for basic and commonly called brick phones for younger ages, and collectively agree with other parents to postpone smartphone use to at least the age of 16. So to summarise, the anxious generation is a most urgently needed contribution to the debate around the pros and cons of social media. Haidt is adamant that smartphones and social media have had a detrimental effect on the impacts of our mental health, particularly on the younger generations, Gen Z. Being a therapist and a coach that works with a wide range of clients, it goes some way to explain the surge in anxiety that is washing over our society. To repeat Haidt's call at the end of his book, it's not too late. But we must all act together to help future generations have much less anxious lives. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, maybe leave a comment. I'll always reply to your comment. And if you feel someone would benefit from watching this, please share it with them. I'll leave you there.